They found a silver pocket watch near the ruins of St. Catherine's in the spring of 1897. But the story behind it began 23 years earlier, on a midnight when the church bell rang for the last time. Every soul in Redemption Flats heard it, every midnight for 6 years after the fire that took the church. That bell would toll 12 times through the darkness. The living said it was the wind. The faithful said it was God. But the old-timers knew better. They said it was him, the man with no shadow.
The town of Redemption Flats sat like a scar on the Texas plains, a collection of weathered boards and broken dreams beneath an unforgiving sky. In 1874, it was the kind of place men came to disappear, where questions weren't asked and names weren't always real. He arrived on a Tuesday, riding a black mare with eyes like coal smoke. Dust clung to his coat. Dust and something darker, the kind of shadow that follows a man who's buried his past but can't quite shake loose of it. The locals called him Silas, just Silas. No last name, no history. He took a room above the Silver Spur Saloon and worked odd jobs, fixing wagon wheels, mucking stables, mending fences. He spoke little, smiled less, but his hands moved with the precision of someone who'd once held something sacred. Father McCready noticed it first. The old priest had eyes like a hawk and a memory longer than the prairie itself. He watched Silas from the church steps each Sunday, watched the way the stranger's gaze would linger on the bell tower, the way his lips would move in silent prayer he thought no one could see. "You got the look of a man carrying stones," Father McCready said one evening, finding Silas on the church steps after vespers. Silas didn't turn, just stared out at the bruising sunset. "We all carry something, Father. Some stones are meant to be set down, and some," Silas's voice cracked like dried leather, "some you carry till they bury you with them."
The town grew around him like brush around a fence post. Sarah Brennan, the school teacher with auburn hair and eyes that held entire libraries, brought him meals when she noticed he forgot to eat. Young Timothy Walsh, the blacksmith's son, followed him like a stray pup, eager to learn the quiet strength Silas carried without words. But it was the widow Cassidy who saw through him first. She found him one autumn evening in the churchyard, kneeling before a grave that wasn't there, just empty grass where he'd placed a handful of wildflowers. "Who are you mourning?" she asked, her own widow's veil catching the dying light. Silas's hands trembled. "Everyone I couldn't save." She sat beside him in the grass, two ghosts keeping vigil for the disappeared. "The war? Something older than that. Something that don't wash off with rain or time." Thunder rolled across the plains that night. In the Silver Spur, over whiskey that burned like penance, an old prospector named Flint told a story he'd heard up north about a church that burned in Colorado in 1868, about a priest who ran back inside to save the children trapped in the choir loft, about how the roof collapsed before he could get them out. They say he lived when he should have died, walked out of them flames without a mark, but something in him burned up all the same. Silas set down his glass and walked into the storm.
It was Sarah who found the photograph, tucked inside a Bible Silas had left at the schoolhouse when he helped repair the roof. The image was faded, smoke-damaged. A younger man in priest vestments, standing before a white church with a copper bell tower. Behind him, a group of children with gap-toothed smiles and innocent eyes. She brought it to him on a night when the wind carried the smell of distant rain. Found him in the stable, brushing down his mare by lamplight. "Who were they?" she asked, holding out the photograph. Silas's hand stopped moving. For a long moment, only the horses' breathing filled the silence. Their names were Emma, Jonathan, Samuel, Grace, and little Margaret, 5 years old. His voice shattered. She had a laugh that sounded like church bells. Sarah stepped closer. The fire in Colorado, I was their shepherd. Silas turned and Sarah saw his face, truly saw it for the first time. The weight of it, the terrible, crushing weight. I was supposed to protect them, but I was in town that day, trying to raise money for winter supplies. Left them with a novice who didn't know the lamp oil was leaking near the choir loft. It wasn't your fault. I heard the bell, Sarah. I was 2 miles away and I heard that bell ringing in panic. I ran. God, how I ran. But when I got there, the smoke, the screaming, I tried. I swear to the Almighty I tried, but the stairs collapsed. The roof came down, and I walked out. I walked out while they burned. The lamp flickered. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall. So I took off the collar, rode south, kept riding till I found another church with another bell tower. Thought maybe if I could hear another church bell at midnight, I could remember them ringing, not screaming.
It happened on December 14th, 1874. A lantern tipped in the general store. Within minutes, flames were racing through Redemption Flats like judgment itself. The wind was wrong, the wood was dry, the fire was hungry, and St. Catherine's stood directly in its path. Father McCready was inside, preparing for midnight mass. The choir, 12 children from the town, including young Timothy Walsh, were practicing hymns in the loft. Silas saw the smoke from the edge of town, saw the flames climbing toward the church like demons ascending, and something inside him, something he thought had burned to ash years ago, suddenly blazed to life. He ran, not away, toward. "Father!" His voice tore through the chaos. "Get 'em out!" The street was pandemonium. Men with buckets, women screaming, horses panicking in their stalls, but Silas moved through it all like a bullet through smoke, his eyes locked on the church bell tower. Father McCready appeared at the door, shepherding children out into the night. 1, 2, 5, 8. "Where's Timothy?" Silas grabbed the priest's shoulders. "Still in the loft! The stairs!" Silas was already moving. Inside, the church was Hale's cathedral. Smoke thick as sin, flames eating the pews like wolves, and above it all, the terrified crying of a child. The stairs were already burning. No time, no path, no way up. Silas grabbed a rope from the wall, the one that rang the bell, and began to climb. Hand over hand through heat that peeled skin, through smoke that clawed at his lungs, through prayers and curses and the ghosts of 5 children he couldn't save. He reached the loft as the roof beam above it groaned. Timothy was huddled in the corner, tears streaming through the soot on his face. I'm sorry! "Nothing to be sorry for, son." I wrapped the boy in my coat. "Hold on tight now. Don't let go." He tied the rope around them both and jumped. They swung through flames and smoke, crashing into the wall, then dropping to the floor below. Silas covered Timothy's body with his own as burning timber rained down around him. "Go!" he shouted to the boy. "Run!" Timothy scrambled toward the door, toward the hands reaching in to pull him out, but as Silas moved to follow, the main support beam gave way.
The bell tower collapsed inward, bringing tons of burning wood and copper bell with it. The last thing Redemption Flats heard before the crash was the bell, ringing wild and frantic as it fell. They dug through the rubble for 2 days, found Father McCready's Bible, found Timothy's hymnal, found charred timbers and melted glass and copper twisted into tortured shapes, but they never found Silas. Some said he made it out, slipped away in the chaos, couldn't bear to be called a hero. Others said he was buried under tons of debris, burned beyond recognition. Sarah Brennan placed flowers where the altar used to be. Every Sunday for 6 years, she brought fresh wildflowers to the ruins. And every midnight the bell rang, 12 times, clear as crystal, impossible as resurrection. The town rebuilt around the ruins, built houses, built lives, but no one ever cleared the site of St. Catherine's. They left it standing, or rather, not standing, a monument to something no one could quite name. Timothy Walsh grew up, became a doctor, saved lives the way someone once saved his. On quiet nights, he'd stand at the edge of the ruins and listen for the midnight bell, remembering the man who climbed through hellfire itself rather than fail another child. In 1897, a group of boys playing in the ruins found something buried beneath where the bell tower once stood. A silver pocket watch, soot-stained, but still ticking. Engraved on the back were words worn almost smooth. For Father Michael Sullivan, in gratitude from St. Mary's Parish, Colorado, 1867. Sarah Brennan held it in her trembling hands. 23 years older, still bringing flowers, still listening for bells at midnight. Michael, your name was Michael. That night, for the first time in 23 years, the bell didn't ring at midnight. The wind blew through the ruins, gentle as a benediction. The copper bell, buried and broken beneath the rubble, remained silent. Perhaps he'd finally set down his stones. Perhaps he'd finally heard what he needed to hear. Not the screams of children burning, but the breathing of one child saved. Perhaps redemption never comes in the forgiveness we seek, but in the moment we stop running toward our past and start running toward someone else's future. They say if you visit Redemption Flats now, what's left of it anyway, just a ghost town drowning in Texas dust, you can still see the ruins of St. Catherine's. The copper bell still lies buried beneath decades of sand and mesquite brush. But on certain nights, when the wind is right and the moon hangs low, travelers passing through swear they hear something. Not quite a bell, not quite a voice, something in between. The sound of a man who carried stones until they became wings. The echo of a prayer that finally reached heaven. Some rode for vengeance, others for gold, but a few, the rarest few, rode for redemption they'd never claim, saving souls they'd never know, answering bells that'd ring forever in the chambers of their breaking hearts. Michael Sullivan never wore the collar again, but he died a priest, died the way he always should have, running toward the fire, not away from it. They say the West keeps its secrets, every scar, every promise, every whispered trail buried beneath the dust. Some rode for vengeance, others for love, but a few rode for redemption they could never claim, saving souls they'd never know, answering bells that would ring forever in the chambers of their breaking hearts. Would you have run toward the flames or away? Subscribe for more tales from Whispering Trails under the Wild West limits, where legends breathe in the dust and heroes die without names.